Gracias for pressing play y welcome to Smart Chickens, a working together smarter where diversity meets innovation and growth podcast. Gracias for pressing play y welcome to Smart Chickens, a working together smarter diversity meets innovation and growth podcast. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, KK Diaz, my brother from another mother. We share an interesting conversation around his origin story, growing up in South Africa, his career journey with a major U.S. company in Sage in South Africa, which then catapulted him to explore his entrepreneurship side and open the door to his own digital transformation consultancy, all while owning a music record label for underground artists in Johannesburg. He talks about building up his courage and the purpose to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and the impact it had on his life and career. Now, 5 authored books later, and with a thriving consultancy, he gives us some of his book recommendations to get 1% better and insights on authoring books and his process. We also take the fictional trip with Michael J. Fox and his Back to the Future DeLorean to see what he would say to a younger KK. As always, this podcast is brought to you by our good friends at digitechie.com, a conversational marketing demand gen and revenue accelerator consultancy, helping B2B growth-focused companies to fill 6 to 7 figure pipelines consistently. And gypsyforever.com, uniquely handmade wellness products that help you connect your mind, body, and soul to achieve a better balanced you. So a little bit about KK Diaz. KK Diaz is a business strategist, digital transformation consultant, marketer, and author of 5 books. He is the CEO of A-Game Business Consulting that helps businesses around the world to drive digital transformation, which improves business performance, customer experiences, and increased brand equity. His latest book, Thrive, that came out earlier this year in January, is all about leaders unlocking digital transformation, remaining relevant, and avoiding disruption. You can get a free copy if you go to his agamebusiness.com/digital/transformation/ebook. As a philanthropist for 12 years now, he's devoted his spare time to E4+C, Entrepreneurs for Positive Change. It's a collective of entrepreneurs who donate their time and efforts to supporting disadvantaged communities and nonprofits to grow. KK Diaz headed on an epic journey that would see him climb Mount Kilimanjaro as one of the E4+C projects. He now helps soon-to-be-released prisoners to start businesses and learn digital skills so they can start a business and careers when they leave prison. This is how he's helping to reduce crime and recidivism. Clients he's worked with include Iron Mountain, Sasol, Henley Business School, Anglo-Simel, McRobert Attorneys, the Da Vinci Institute, Distinctive Group, Dell Financial Services, Oracle, the GHB Chamber, Sun Goddess, and many others. He's also an executive, most recently, an executive chairman at the Pangaea Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa. Their purpose is to give everyone an opportunity to live a life of dignity. The Pangaea Foundation drives township economic revitalization. They achieve this by supporting government, nonprofits, and corporates in rolling out meaningful economic transformation and job creation initiatives within communities that need it the most. So vamos, let's chat with him. And without further ado, here's KK Diaz. Senor KK Diaz, how are you? How are you doing, my friend? Can you hear me good? Can you hear me well? Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good. Look, I'm really excited to have you on. You know, a little bit of the last time we chatted, you were generous and gracious enough to let me be part of your Digital Transformation Online Summit. This was back in April, late April through, I think, early May. So we've had a couple months go by and transcend. And I first and foremost hope that you, your family, and everyone that you know are doing well in South Africa. And tell us a little bit about that. You know, tell us how things are going right now. And you know, the idea behind this podcast, as you may already know, is truly to talk about entrepreneurs that have a different mindset because of their diversity, where they're coming from, their own journey and experience. So I'm going to want to delve and unpack KK Diaz and how you how you were in your formative years, growing up there in South Africa. And, you know, we can learn a little bit about your journey and how you've evolved over the years for your business as well as your own entrepreneurship journey. How does that sound?
Perfect. Yeah. And first of all, thank you, man. In South Africa, we say siyabonga, at least in Zulu. So thank you very much. Gracias. I loved how quickly we got to connect, and now we're literally family, man. So I appreciate that. And I just want to say congratulations on your show. I love how you just picked up the opportunity and you just ran with it. And you have a beautiful studio, man. So big up with that. And yeah, thanks for qualifying me as a smart chicken. Yeah.
I like that. Yes.
So yeah, man, talking about where we are, I mean, I'm in the best shape of my life, man, considering, having been as busy as I've always been, I've been all over the place. So I never really properly took care of myself, just in terms of eating on time every day, working out. So I appreciate that. And I've always really been somebody who takes full advantage of digital technology, being able to work from home. So this is my space. I love working from home. And by my space, I mean, I love the idea of being able to work where I want to work, when I want to work, and with whom I want to work. So I'm enjoying that. Yes, I could do with a lot more business, right? But otherwise, family's good. I'm good. I did have a couple of people. As a matter of fact, I've got 2 colleagues right now who are in quarantine, 5 days now. But they're doing well, so I'm happy with that. An uncle of mine who's really in the front line. He works not far from where I am, which is Sunny Hill Clinic, one of the bigger clinics in Johannesburg. He's just come out of quarantine, so I'm really happy about that. And I'm sad about those who don't make it through. But we roll with the punches, man. We do what we can, and we continue to strive forward and see how we can help communities out there, man.
Yeah, no, that's great. And listen, we all have a C19 story, or know a loved one or someone who knows a loved one. As you know, I have family in South America and Ecuador, and I did have 2 cousins that are with C19 right now. Thankfully, they're getting better. But yeah, this is touching everybody. And knock on wood, most of us are cognizant of the fact of what we have to do to stay, kind of healthy. And because of that, I think that as long as you're sort of sharing that vision of protecting yourself and protecting those others in your community, we can overcome this. But now I want to go back a little bit to you and take us back a little bit. So tell us what it was like, because not many people know someone from South Africa, and far fewer know an entrepreneur from South Africa, let's say, right? So tell us about your career and your entrepreneurship journey. But before getting into that, tell us how it was growing up in South Africa for you, your family dynamics, what motivated you? How did you get that bug, so to speak, for entrepreneurship early on in life?
Yeah. Look, where do I start? We live, and I grew up, and we still live in one of the most unequal societies in the world, right? Easily top 3, because we've got the have-nots who've got close to nothing, and we've got, the other end of it who have everything, right? So I kind of grew up near the extreme of not having much, and I'll always appreciate not being aware that I was poor, i.e. I was able to be happy. I enjoyed my childhood, and I was blessed and lucky to yes, my mom kind of shipped me off my little brother and I when I was 8, and my little brother was about 3, 4 at the time. She was going to teachers college to upgrade her education so she can become a teacher, which she still is now. As a matter of fact, she's going to retire in about a year. So I'm really proud of her career. So anyway, when she went to college, she kind of shipped us off, and I don't mean in a negative way, but to live with my aunt, right? So my aunt in Petersburg in the north, one of the poorest communities, she had 4 kids living in a 2-room house. Not 2 bedrooms, literally 2-room house. And it was me and my brother. So it was like 6, 7 of us, right? Sharing this 2-bedroom house, this 2-room house. And we just couldn't, yes, our neighbors kind of had much bigger houses, but it didn't matter, dog. We were happy. Everybody was just, happy to be together, to be family, and just out of nowhere, when I was 8, 9, my cousin and I, who's same age as myself, Vincent, he says, yo, let's start selling sweets in school. And obviously I'm a yes man. So I'm like, yeah, bro, let's do it. And really that's where it all kicked off. And it was so natural for me to a point where it took me a whole 10, 12 years to kind of understand what it is that I was doing, which I came to find out was called entrepreneurship. You know, for me, it was, I'm just being myself. And I didn't have to sell stuff to start little businesses because I needed to put money at home or anything like that. It was, hey, you know, I'd love to do this. Let me do this. Let me do that. And I just kind of ran with it. So I really believe it was a natural inclination. I was kind of born with that, you know, in the same way that other people are born teachers, engineers, and so on. I believe I was born an entrepreneur. And obviously I needed to build on that. And that's why I tried going to college. I dropped out. It did help quite a bit, but I think it was really the practical experience that kind of helped me with that. And I'll always appreciate both my parents, my mom and my dad, for always, you know, when I needed a little loan here and there, they were always there to kind of help out, you know, as kind of middle class as we were, because my dad kind of, both of them actually, they kind of, you know, made sure they did what parents can do to improve not only their livelihoods, but also those of their kids, you know. So
Sure.
yeah, big up to both of them. And when I was 21, started a record label. Right, my friends and I had always been in music.
What kind of genre was it? I'm a music fan as well.
So really all over the place, because we were a record label, right?
Record label, right.
We've got
you represented artists there in the South Africa,
it.
Johannesburg area, and outside probably.
Yeah, I got to produce a house album. I got to produce at least my own. This is, and I got to do a bit of rap. We call it kwaito music, right? So it's really taking rap and kind of fusing it with yes, rhythm, rhythm and raps, and sometimes house, like high speed tempo beats and so forth. So I really enjoyed that part of life, but got to work with so many wonderful underground artists. Got to work with artists from Canada. Even from the US, at one point we participated in an album called Obama, All We Want Is Answers. And that album got to win a United Nations Humanitarian Award. So there was quite a bit that we did in that industry. And the catalyst for me to kind of shift, yes, prior to that, I had worked as a consultant for a company that was called Pastel at the time. Now Sage from the US, if I'm not mistaken, bought Pastel over. And so at the time, it really didn't interfere with what I was trying to do at the time. But I ended up leaving the company. I worked for it for about 2-3 years. I was literally the first Black consultants that they had in the payroll division. That's where I got to learn about business. That's where I got to, you know, visit businesses right across the spectrum in terms of industry, in terms of size. That's where I got to learn about business. I'm like, oh shit, people are struggling with this, people are struggling with that. Mm-hmm. And obviously the Black communities, you know, the challenges are much higher, much steeper. And I'm like, look, I need to do something about this. And then I started the consultancy business that's now evolved into A Game Business today.
That's something I noticed on your resume and on your profile on LinkedIn, that you very early on, you know, took your kind of corporate experience, if you will, and turned it into, I've got to go on my own in consultancy. And back to your education, I had another guest, by the way, from your country, from South Africa, Sarah Kalala. And she was from the Limpopo region. So the north.
Same place I'm from, yeah.
Okay. So what I think that I love that I heard from her and I'm hearing from you is that, you know, she and her family and her parents also drove home the importance of education. Her mother also went into it was either, she told me that for a part of the generation that went through apartheid, you know, they made it difficult for obviously people of color to get certain types of, you know, even types of positions or jobs. So either you went into nursing or education. Yeah. But even that was, like you said, a sacrifice, you know, that they would do for the betterment of their children. And their children would go into colleges, some and what have you. So it's interesting that you mentioned that as well, that your mother went and did her education while you were with your aunt and your brother. And I love that story you're telling me about Vincent, because I heard you on another podcast talk about Vincent. and how your cousin basically introduced you sort of into the world of entrepreneurship. But then I'm hearing you say that in a big way, when you were doing your accounting consultancy, you were able to, I guess, be exposed a bit more to what the real business needs were there in the community, right? So
100%.
tell me a little bit about how that experience translated into you doing something that I thought was remarkable. Is remarkable. In 2013, you decided to, go to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, and you had it as a kind of a project that symbolized how, I guess, hope for, reaching a summit and not feeling like you can't accomplish something for those who want to dream about having their own business in South Africa. Unpack that a little to us, because not many people could ever claim that. I mean, that's a pretty wild claim that you actually accomplished. So that's great.
Yeah. So as the reason why I left the consultancy was, I'd always been a lone ranger. I've always been somebody who's just out there charting his kind of his own journey. And then I left consultancy to start, rather Sage at the time, to start my consultancy and the record label at the same time. And the reason why I started the consultancy is because I'd like to believe at least that I did my work so well that when I left, clients were like, yo, we're going to follow you wherever you go. I'm like, okay, I'll register this business so that I can have something under which I can support and kind of service you while I do and follow my passion, at least at the time, right? And so I continued, and taking a couple of years steps back, going back to what you said, which is now I'm realizing what it truly takes to run a business, because I look back and I'm like, whoa, I failed in close to 10 businesses, business initiatives that I was starting at the time, with people around me. And then I get to consult in this space, payroll, accounting, and this entire world just opens up to me, right? And I see what it's like to truly be in the driver's seat, because now I'm dealing with CEOs of medium to large businesses, and they have these massive issues. And then I go into the communities to address the same kind of problems related to accounting and payroll. But then those business people and those communities have got way more problems, and more than having bigger problems and bigger challenges, there's context that they and me didn't have, at least at the time. I got to grow up in Johannesburg and so forth. So there was greater context around business and around a level of sophistication in business and economics and so forth. And I go back to the hood, I'm like, whoa, man, what a massive gap between these two worlds. And so what can I do to kind of help fill the gap and, pull others along with me, right? And so my record label fails, which was a blessing. But part of it fails because I can't stand how unprofessional artists are, right? I'm like, yo, we're going to do this at this time. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to drive this thing. And none of it happens. And I'm like, but I can't spend the rest of my life this way, And for years, I love this. It'll come out negatively, but it'll make sense just now. For years, my mother called me a waste, right? She says, my son, you are waste. And I say, what do you mean, Mom? She says, because you're brilliant and people are not using you for the greatness that you have. And so that in itself makes me realize that there's greater things in life that I could do. And so that's why I shut down the music business. Yes, it was doing so badly. I mean, I end up, at the worst part of my life, the worst time in my life. I get divorced, things don't work, no money, all of that crap, And then I get to meet Alon Reyes, who's truly somebody who saved my life. Company's Race Corp, so I'll always be grateful for him. He really picks me up and really helps to sharpen me and shape me into really the beginning of who I've become today, helping me to properly establish my consultancy. This was in 2007, 2008. And then I try and find my way through the jungle. A couple of years later, I'm wanting now to differentiate myself. Every year I'm looking at ways that I can kind of position myself from a marketing perspective, because a consultant is a consultant, right? They call us witch doctors, and so I needed to come across as a better witch doctor. And so one of the things I did after attending a conference that was hosted by Sadar, who are my partners today as well. And so Ronnie Mule talks about how he's climbed Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm like, what? Is this possible even? Could I possibly do this? And then I speak to him after he does his talk. And by then I had already committed to the idea of climbing. So I start asking him, how do I do this, right? And at the back of my mind, I'm like, so what is the purpose behind this? Why do I want to climb, right? And what is going to propel me and keep motivating me to actually pursue this goal? And what I come up with is, look, there's a lot of people, and not just in Black poor communities, but across the spectrum, people don't pursue their goals because they either believe they don't have enough money, or they don't have the experience, or they don't have the education, right? And I'm like, cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this climb to help people get rid of the excuses, i.e., I'm going to climb this mountain, which is to pursue a massive goal. I won't use my own money, i.e., I'm going to look for sponsors, right? And in order to look for sponsors, you got to formulate a value proposition that is compelling enough to someone who's then willing to give you funds, whether to start a business, to pursue a career, whatever the case may be. Because business and life,
or in your case, to climb Kilimanjaro.
That's it. That's it, right?
For a mission and a cause or a vision, right?
That's it. Because, and I remember speaking to sponsors, talking to them about how I'd like to do this to inspire the youth, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yo, what's that got to do with us? And then that's also where I got to truly understand that you may be on a path to do something positive and great, but if that value proposition does not match with the people who must pay or fund it, then you won't succeed. And therefore, learn how to formulate value propositions that speak to the people to whom you are proposing to. Even if the journey or the product or service, you may be offering it to another set of community or customer segments, but make sure that the value proposition speaks to the people with whom you want to transact with, right? So that was another key lesson that came out of that. And then obviously the other one is about experience. Yes, I was born in a rural area, but if you ask your typical Black South African, the last thing that they're going to do is climb a mountain, right? Because we're kind of born in that space. And so we aspire for the more sophisticated stuff than going out into the outdoors and so forth. So I'd never climbed anything higher than, say, 1,000 meters at the time. And it had been years since I'd done that, back in Makwelering, where Vincent's family was based at the time. And so I didn't have.
So what is the elevation? Sorry, of Mount Kilimanjaro?
Approximately 5.6, 5.9 thousand meters, which is close to 5-6 kilometers, actually, at least. It's in a region. It's just under 6,000. It is. And it was really one of the most interesting, one of the most testing, and, one of the most beautiful things I've ever done in my life, And I always say I died on that mountain, The old me died on that mountain because the new KK was born. And when I came off that mountain, man, a whole new world just stood in front of me. But how long did that climb take, by the way? So there are a couple of trails, right? I believe that you have a 3-day trail to climb all the way up. But we took the 5-day trail to climb up, and then it took us 2 days to climb down. Now, the trick is the longer you take to climb, the more you give your body to acclimatize. And so it's safer to actually take longer to climb. So we took the longer route, which I'm truly grateful we did, because I don't know if we had done if we had done it in lesser time, if I would have made it back, literally, because some people unfortunately don't make it back as a result of that. Because unless you've been at that level above sea level before, you don't know how it's going to affect your body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're lacking oxygen. I'm from Quito, which is one of the highest elevation cities in the world. So I get what you're saying, but I've been living in South Florida, which is, we're sea level. And so whenever I made trips to Ecuador, just even climbing, sort of like up the street, you start feeling winded because your body's not used to it. Your blood is thinner. But so amazing. And I love how you're saying, and this is, thank you for the transparency and just, the vulnerability in talking about going through such a difficult moment in your life before this climb with, your passion industry goal of doing a record label, which I'm sure you had some good times too. And it was somewhat fun and
yeah. If you look,
I see all the equipment in the back.
Right.
Yeah. So you still jam, but no, I get it.
Son, yeah.
To
With
that
my
inflection point, which is
son.
you've got to kind of turn the page, right? So it seems to me that when you say it and so poetically that you feel like the old KK died in that mountain, and it was sort of like a rebirth. It seems to me when you came back down, you probably had a different perspective, a different sense of what your true north was and your mission. Talk us through. So now you're coming down the mountain, or you accomplished this, and what did that catapult you to do post the climb?
Yeah. So and again, just for perspective, the record label fails in 2007. I give myself a year to wrap up all the projects. So I shut it down in 2008. Alon kind of partners with me, helps me out. And so there was a couple of years from the point I had made the decision in terms of what I would be doing with my life, which is to help other business people to never fail like I did. Right. And so then it takes me a couple of years to climb Kili. So by then I kind of had some form of clarity in terms of what I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life to. But then I climbed down, and one of my coaches at the time, let me just remember her name. She's going to kill me. She's going to kill me for forgetting her name again. But anyway, she challenges me. She says, "You've just done something amazing and people need to know about this." Yes, I had been talking to people, trying to get interviews about this, but she says, "You got to write a book about this." And at the time I had been in the process of writing the A-Game Business Blueprint, which now then becomes my second book, because the climb kind of hijacks the process. And in 3 weeks' time, I'm able to write and complete this book through the help of my good friend, Andrew Miller. And I then realized that this is where I need to be. It's not just about business administration. It's not just about compliance, but it's really about helping entrepreneurs and business people to build great businesses. And that's what it's about. And that's what I dedicate the rest of my life to. Hence, I've written 5 books now, working on my 6th and 7th at the same time, which is a space that I'm truly loving. And
talk us about that. Like, where's your love for? Because so also you speak 5 languages, right? Which different dialects of your
local
African
languages,
descent. But you're also got this love of not the language, but also the written language. I see, because you got the 5 authored books. They're around business, except for I would say Climb, which is it's interesting story on itself. I haven't read all of them, but I have downloaded some of your ebooks, so I know what you're.
Appreciate it.
You focus on. What I found interesting on one that you were writing was you really get into data almost about the in South Africa in particular, when you were talking about the haves and the have-nots, it's got some of the lowest gen, which is the way they measure the amount of investment or companies that actually get I guess formed probably from lower economic parts of South Africa, right? So those are generational changes, as you know. And part of it is, a big part of it is what you're doing, which is just the reaching out and educating those communities or the small businesses who then become medium-sized businesses who can now, hire, and it sort of has a domino effect, I would presume, not only in South Africa, all over the world, but there in specific. What inspired you, or how do you get inspired to write books? Because many of us maybe won't even write one book, right? You're on your like 6th and 7th. So tell me, because I'm curious. Not that I'm thinking about writing a book anytime soon, but
you should.
What do you use? What do you use to get yourself in that frame of mind of okay, I'm gonna have to sit down and now write this out, or how do you formulate that?
Good question, man. And then it's I kind of need to reach in a bit to see how I can best answer this. I want to start by saying sometimes we don't appreciate the skills we've developed over the years. Dan Sullivan who's one of the greatest, coaches ever to ever walk this earth, really talks about how when you are looking into the future, he asks the question, what is it in your past that you want to take with you into your future, right? Yes, there's baggage you want to leave there, but there are skills you've developed. And in some cases, they seem random, they seem unrelated. And so what helped me, what had always given me the confidence is I'd always been helping musicians to write their songs, right?
Oh, I love
And
this.
that's
So storytelling.
right. There you
Lyrics.
go. And so it's not that we can't write books when we haven't written our first book or we haven't written that first song. It's really about confidence. It's about how afraid we are to put ourselves out in public, right? It's about how shy we are when we are writing an email that's going to go to either one person or 100 people, right? People know how to write blog articles, but they don't write it because they fear how people are going to respond to that blog article when they read it. And so because sometimes I'm an idiot, right? i.e., I'm brave beyond even my reasonable capability, right? I really have that, call it a level of courage that I don't even know where it comes from. But again, climbing Kili is one of the things that had done that to me, right? It kind of elevated to another level. So anyway, that's really where it came from. It's about me extracting or utilizing old talents, kind of merging them and saying, in the same way that I still use my sound engineering skills into what I'm doing today as a business strategist, i.e. the podcast, doing the little videos and hosting webinars. That's where all the courage and my ability to take something, write it, make sense of it, convert it into consumable content that's relevant to my audience and put it out. And really that's where it comes from. That's part of it. But the second piece is I write my books firstly for myself before the audience. And so it's really about me learning, about me transforming myself, developing myself, reading all the books I need to read when I do the research, talking to all the business people out there, interacting and reaching out to people like you. And when I've kind of met people, I'm like, yo, I need to speak to Gian, or I need to speak to that person. And I actually do it, right? And when you kind of dare me to say, yo, I'm going to do an interview, and I say yes first, and then figure out how I'm going to go about doing it, right? It's all of those working together. And I think, considering where we are today, how anxious and just scared people feel, all I can say is, courage, like Nelson Mandela says, or used to say, courage is not about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear and still doing it anyway. So you won't necessarily get rid of all the fear. You need to develop your courage, whether it's figuring out how you're going to drive your business forward or how you're going to find a new career, but you have to develop the courage and do what you got to do. If it's about putting pen to paper and publishing that first blog article, and that's really how my first two books kind of came together. It was writing blog articles, communicating to people, and I literally just put them together, make sense of it, ask somebody who knows how to write better than I do and help me to put this thing together. And now today I can do it on my own, at least to some extent. I still need an editor. Trevor Waller, a good friend of mine, still edits my books. So I don't feel that I have to kind of write a published ready book. I know I need to go this far, and then somebody else will take me from that point to the next point. That's also something I think people need to appreciate.
So I love a lot of what you just said. And I think what I take away from what you're telling me right now is, you and most of the world probably know of, unfortunately passed away, Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant, not only was he an incredible athlete, basketball, but he was also an incredible person. And he had this Mamba mentality. And his Mamba mentality or Mamba philosophy was about being fearless of fear. Yeah. In other words, what you're saying, right? It's don't let fear consume you, because literally what's right around the corner that we can't see is what gets us apprehensive about doing anything and reluctant. But typically when you when you go through that corner, you see that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, right? And it doesn't limit you. So I love what you're saying about that, right? And also another thing that I'm noticing about you is that, KK, you're a lifelong learner, and you've got an appetite for curiosity. So you're willing to, put in the work. You're also willing to ask for help which I think is important too, because sometimes, often as entrepreneurs, and I know that I've suffered from this at times, you get too consumed in wanting to do it all, and it's it's humanly impossible. You've got to kind of delegate. You've got to reach out. So I love the fact that you're saying there. One, have that mama mentality. So don't be afraid of what's around the corner, right? Be fearless.
Yep.
And then two, be curious, but also open to getting help. So you don't have to do it all, right?
100%.
That's great. So now talk me through, we did back in April, a digital transformation online summit. And it was interesting because this happened literally as C19 was really picking up and impacting business world, globally. You're in South Africa, I'm here in Florida, in the US, but irregardless, it's a global community in business, and what impacts us here in the US can impact South Africa, Europe, and Asia, and vice versa, right? So talk me through what you've been seeing lately around this sort of digital transformation landscape, maybe specifically in South Africa, and what you're seeing, what's developing, and how you're helping out.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So one of the things that I know you say quite a bit is you talk about success being when opportunity meets preparation, right? And so going back to what I had said about having worked for Sage and really the consulting that I did was a lot about how to, formulate a workable, scalable, and smart strategy, but how do you support it with technology? So the idea of utilizing digital technology had always been in my DNA, had always been in the company's DNA. And so we've always been preaching that. And so by the time COVID-19 kind of arrives, in January, I published a book on digital transformation called Thrive, right? Mm-hmm. And so the reason we chose that particular week is because that is between the 27th of April and the 1st of May, are between Freedom Day in South Africa and May Day, right, which is International Labor Day. And that gives us an entire week of space that we can utilize when the country's kind of laid back. People are either home on holiday. So at least we were thinking at the time, people will be home kind of taking things easy, and they'll be able to,
understatement of the decade. People will be home during a global pandemic. No, but I love it. But you're right. And I remember you telling me, which I thought was interesting. They were looking for speakers, and some had, kind of giving you the I'm too busy, cold shoulder type approach, which sometimes happens. And then C19 happens, and these same, potential speakers are like, yes, please. I need to show face. People are getting let go in mass numbers here. Please. Yes. I want to be a speaker. Like none of us knew, as you know, none of us knew that, well, I shouldn't say none of us knew. Epidemiologists and people they were initially, in on it a little bit. The CDC and other places probably did know, but World Health Organization. However, it really is remarkable because the timing couldn't have been more perfect,
right?
For you, and in January, Thrive, which is all about digital transformation. Mm-hmm. We're starting a new decade. You had planned it out beautifully, knowing that it's like time of the year in South Africa where the business community is on holiday, and plus here in the U.S. also we have Memorial Day. So, but now tell me, I could be wrong about Memorial Day now. But tell me, so when you did this and you launched it, what was your impact post the event to some of these businesses that they might have reached out to you?
So really, even the gospel says, philosophers and the prophets, which I'm not purporting I am, when they come to cities and to give their messages, only a fraction of the people will actually listen to them. And so I feel like that's what's been happening for 10 years at least when we've been preaching digital technology. A very small number of early adopters would kind of listen out and say, okay, let's try this and let's try that. And I just wish more and more people kind of had the courage to do that, right? And I'm hoping that the impact of COVID-19 and obviously of the digital transformation kind of business meeting, that inflection point is now awakening people to see that they don't have the privilege of not looking forward into the future, i.e. what is digital transformation? How could it actually impact us even more in the future? Because it's never going to stop. So anyway, so that's really what we preach in our business. And And the impact of DTOS 2020 really elevates the A Game business brand. It elevates my personal brand, and I'm able to make the kind of connections that I made with people such as yourself. I mean, we had about 24 speakers came together pretty quickly, as a matter of fact, because there were interruptions in our preparations, right?
Yeah.
But it really came together very quickly, and the intention was always to keep it digital. It was always going to be an online summit to kind of carry the theme, right? To say, hey, we're going to host this thing, and this is what it's going to look like, and these are the topics. And so before I speak about the impact, I just want to say thanks to all the sponsors that said no to us, because not only did we get 24 international speakers to be part of this, but we got like 650 people attend, which is really was a massive success, considering really we were well unknown really to the rest of the world, but we had people from Germany, Nigeria, just about everywhere.
Yeah, that was
Ecuador.
awesome.
That was awesome, man. It was beautiful. But the impact was, at least we got to ignite people's thinking. We got to help organizations and institutions to understand not only how to make sense of it all, but what they should have done, which was very key for us. I.e., I'm glad we got people to regret what it is that they didn't do, because you know what it's like when you don't regret, or you don't necessarily
Learn, appreciate,
right?
and learn. Mm-hmm.
That's it. It was really the pain of seeing what people hadn't done, and therefore what they can do with it, that I think we appreciated and say, cool, here it is, here are the books, here are people like Gian and other speakers and their books and all the bonuses we gave them. And we said, look, go and learn. Come back to us when you have questions, and we'll see how we can help you. And today, man, we have hundreds and hundreds of new leads and just connections and just people we're speaking to. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, every other week, there's 1, 2 maybe interviews. I've got another one from Canada tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to. So yeah, we just continuing, man.
No, that's great, man. I mean, I think that the timing was such, it just happened to fall right in the middle of like the initial part of the global pandemic. The subject matter was very, very on point. And I agree that, it's kind of to what you were saying before, right? So for companies that have not embraced digital transformation, it was a rude and hard awakening. But I think it's also the silver lining is that now more than ever, there's more opportunities for those organizations to kind of turn the switch, right? Turn the switch on to digital transformation using, companies and consultancies like yourself and others. And so I think that, being able to lead with education is always, it goes forward tenfold, because, it's just like kind of Seth Godin talks about, right? You can be all things to all people. Seth Godin's, you don't want to necessarily produce anything, whether it's content or, he writes books for a living, obviously too. And, but it's about getting into that niche, that X percentage that really are your true kind of, potential clients. Right. So, I'm almost positive that the people that attended the event are those types, right? Of that, some will take longer than others to able to adopt. And a lot of times right now, I think the challenge is that I don't think it's even that organizations right now don't want to turn the switch on completed digital transformation. It could be budgetary reasons, allocations of budget. But for the most part, I think that if the last 3 months have taught us anything, it's that, you have to be willing to change, and you've got to be sort of like a futurist, right? You've got to think now, what's 3 years out look like, and work backwards maybe. And 100%. I'm pretty sure that that's what you and your consultancy emphasize to them as well. It's not just you're going to do this because, it's going to impact you in the next couple of months and we'll see what happens with C19, but really you can prepare companies with the right digital transformation strategies to be 5 years out, looking at how they're going to impact their industry or their business, right? So talk us through that a little bit. Like what are some of the things you're seeing there in South Africa that people are looking already into kind of the future? Because everyone's living C19, but people are also hopeful, I think, and thinking, what is it going to look like post C19, or what does that look like?
So, there's too few companies that have kind of, I think, pivoted effectively, and I think that's the same right around the world, right? But obviously, the medical and health industry is kind of leading the charge in as far as innovation is concerned, and I think it goes back to the pressure of, if we don't do this now, we're going to see much worse devastation. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. I've helped three companies to kind of in the medical space, my team and I at least, to help them chart new ways, not only of how to use digital marketing, but how to digitize how they deliver their value proposition to their clients. There was a colleague who was retrenched from a global company. It's an American company in the digital storage space that's operating in the country as well. Unfortunately, she's an executive, got laid off, and just over the last week two, we're in the process of helping her establish her business. Yes, she started herself, but now she's like, okay, now what do I do with this baby, right? How do I take digital technology and infuse it, and how do I differentiate myself? And we'll help her fine tune her business model, her value proposition, and obviously to integrate the digital technology that she needs in order to provide value in the space. But in the beauty of it all, she has over 25 years experience in the medical space, where she's looking at taking global companies, helping them to distribute their products, their innovations locally. So anyway, to answer the question around what's happening in the country, we've seen, unfortunately, massive devastation as a result of the government. I don't blame them. I think it's still a smart move, but if I wasn't a person doing what I do today, I may have different sentiments about it. So there's been a banning of cigarettes and alcohol in the country. So we've been kind of on and off. Sometimes you get a few days to kind of purchase your alcohol, and then weekends it's all banned. But now it's banned altogether. And so the devastation of that industry, I mean, we're looking at, there's about if I'm not mistaken, let's say about 1 million jobs that have been affected as a result of this banning of alcohol and cigarettes. But here's the thing. Because of our lifestyles and what we have and don't have in this country, i.e., there's a lot of sharing of cigarettes, right? Because people can't necessarily afford their own, the whole pack of cigarettes they can smoke by themselves. So there's a whole sharing of cigarettes. And unfortunately, that influences or affects the number of infections, right? And so we need to curb that. So by curbing it, again, this is why I don't blame the government for having done that. And obviously, I do drink, but right. I think I'm in better shape now because I haven't been. It was voluntarily. It was way prior to the banning. But when the government said lockdown, I was like, okay, no smoking, no cigarettes. I'm just going to work out and just focus on being healthy over the next couple of weeks, right? Because I need to be healthier than I've been before, so that if I get infected or whatever the case may be, at least my body will be at its strongest. Sure. So anyway, there's been massive devastation in as far as that's concerned, man. And I think people who are not expecting it, are feeling the pinch like right now. And the extent of that devastation, we're only at the beginning of it all. I mean, we're a country of about 65 million people, and because of previous challenges, whether it was resulting from apartheid and whatever else other issues we've had as a country, only about 10, maybe 15 million people are in the formal economy, i.e., that's the number of people who pay taxes and contribute to the country's GDP. Now, 4, 5, maybe more million jobs are lost. This country is at its knees, bruh. Right. And here's the thing: in January, February, we get relegated to junk status as a country, and then a month later, COVID-19 hits. And so there's just this double whammy that just from both ends, man, we just get squashed in the middle with this rock in the hard place. But this is why we got to have the courage. This is why our business leaders need to be honest, be authentic about what they can and can't do, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do, so that we can really be frank with each other. and see what we can and what we will be able to and won't be able to do in restarting this economy. Because if we're going to rely on cigarettes and alcohol, what kind of a country are we going to be, right? Yes,
Yeah.
those are important for some people. There's nothing wrong with people who want to smoke and drink, but what kind of industries do we want to rely on as a country? And one of the opportunities that came up, which I took with both hands, I've always been somebody who looks at how we can contribute to community development. So in the same way that I did with Climbing Kili, now and again, I'll start initiatives that contribute to the economy. So I've been working in prisons as well to kind of help the brothers and sisters prepare themselves so that when they come out of prison, at least there's either a little business here they can start, or maybe they can work for somebody else. And so amongst all of those projects that I've been doing, one of my great partners and friends and kind of mentors said to me, I know you must be feeling bad about your inability to kind of contribute right now. So they've given me an opportunity to lead a brand new nonprofit organization we just started. It's called the Pangea Foundation, which I'm very proud of. So what we're going to do, the reason I'm telling you this is part of it is going to help kind of reignite the economy economy in the townships. And one of the things Warren says to me is, but you are not re-energizing, you're not resetting, because we've never truly had thriving economies in the townships. So we're really starting them from scratch. And that's what it's about. Whether it's in the townships, in communities, or in business, I think let's not be afraid of understanding that we have to start our businesses as if nothing existed before. And in itself, that's an opportunity, and we got to take with both hands and see what we can do with it, man, and just make the best of the opportunity.
No, that's great. And listen, congratulations. I'm sure you're going to do great on that. I'll definitely put it on the show notes to see if we can get more information. If there's anything that some of us here in the States could do to help,
Thank you.
At least it'll be on the show notes, and we'll raise some awareness that way.
Appreciate it.
I agree with you. And listen, we're in the same boat here in a certain way. South Florida is right now, surpassed New York as cases of COVID-19. We're not in great shape in terms of the numbers because of situations that have happened at the federal and the state level. But without getting too much into the politics of it all, I would say that businesses are struggling to try to reopen safely. Those that are more on the knowledge economy, that are more towards things you could still do working from home and working through technology, through platforms and what have you, they have seen less of a hit. Albeit there's still, a good number of layoffs that have happened because of the economy and just the slowdown and the trickle down effect and the domino effect, whatever you want to call it. But there is some sunshine rays a little bit that we could maybe look into. At least in my perspective, the way I think about it is that, this has created obviously a disruption like no other. But at the same time, it's created opportunities that those of us who have that skill set or the knowledge-based economy can lend and help these economies that may have been stuck, not jumping on digital transformation or having to now reassess and reinvent and pivot. So there's going to be a lot of, I think, winners and losers, of course, unfortunately, with this, because it's just shaping. Brick and mortar companies, for example, restaurants and the hospitality industry, what have you. Those are really challenging industries to be in right now, right? Travel. I mean, here in Florida, we just opened 2 Saturdays ago, Disney World, right? Disney as an organization obviously owns ESPN. So it is by no coincidence, I should say, that we have Major League Baseball and NBA opening up at the sports complex, right? And even those kind of industries, right, like professional sports, are taking a bit of a hit, but are also looking to innovate, right? So doing these very leagues that are gonna be self-contained, sort of in a bubble type environment. Now, I hope that our future isn't that we're all in some kind of bubble environment. But I do think that using the knowledge we have to help or organizations, and maybe going into different industries, like in your case, that sounds awesome that you were given this opportunity to now help a nonprofit, right? And help the townships and give the skills necessary for them to,
Yeah.
to come out of this better on the other end. If you could, just kind of help me unpack this, but also maybe summarize this as, for the listeners, if they want to take 3, takeaways from this conversation that we've had today, this sort of just, chat and dialogue, what would those be? Because think about, and to give you a context behind it, let's think about potentially either someone who's been furloughed and is now in a career sort of limbo, and or maybe a young person who was recently, who's recently graduated college and now has to come into this kind of workforce reality, right? What would be some, some important takeaways or 3 takeaways that you think you would want to leave them with from this conversation?
So thanks again for the opportunity, man. It's been a great and stimulating conversation. I think first and foremost, one of the things that I believe, C19 has kind of done for at least a lot of people is given them an opportunity to kind of relook at their lives, right? And when you introspect and you self-reflect, you one of the big questions you ask yourself is, who am I and what am I doing on this earth, right? And so, they say 2 of the most important days in anybody's life, one is when they were born, and the second is when they find out why they were born, meaning when you discover your purpose. So going back to those 3 points, discover your purpose, right? It's not going to come from the ether anywhere, right? You need to choose what your purpose is, and what it is. So there are ways, there's collateral and information out there that can help you to discover your purpose. If you don't, if you don't have access to it, I'm here. I can help you with that. So discover your purpose, who you are, and what you want to do, and make it important, right? And the same thing applies to businesses, right? Businesses need to rediscover their purpose and make sure that they are aligning that purpose with real values. Secondly, as I said earlier, and as we were chatting earlier, courage is important, man. It's not about what you have and what you don't have right now, but it's about what you're willing to do. So have the courage and be willing to do what needs to be done to continue pursuing your purpose, right? And secondly, and maybe it speaks, thirdly, it speaks to the second point as well. One of my favorite quotes is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others, right? This journey we are on right now is a journey that's going to take us a while, and we need to work together in order to get there. So find the most valuable, the most resourceful, the most authentic people that you can surround yourself with, work together to build something that is worthwhile, something that is interesting, something that speaks to your heart, something that's going to keep you passionate and really purposefully driven, and work together to do just beautiful things, man. This is an opportunity that we got to take with both hands. So those are my 3 points, brother.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that last proverb too. I've heard it before and I've used it myself. So I love that. So because I know that you are a lifelong learner and that curiosity has gotten you to where you are today with A-Game Business Consulting, tell us, what are 3 books that you would recommend that can help feed sort of that, that mindset that you've developed?
So I'm just going to pull up my phone here, because I have a terrible habit of not remembering people's, at least the authors' names. One is a kind of, it's not an old, but it's an old favorite of mine. It's really Blue Ocean Shift, right? This is the sequel to Blue Ocean Strategy. And the reason why that book is because it gives you brilliant ideas and ways that you can literally and practically use to innovate and to see what you were doing and compare it with what everybody else is doing, and therefore come up with something that will particularly be unique to you and your business, right? Another one that I loved, I came across very recently, is called Reinventing Organizations. I'm just going to quickly open this and so I can check the cover and look at the author, if you don't mind. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my book, with my Amazon, my Kindle rather. So it's called Reinventing Organizations, an illustrative invitation really. It helps you to look at how to build the kind of institution or organization that is open. It's an open organization, and it's not about the traditional way of managing and running businesses, which is something businesses need to look at. And another one that I really enjoyed was Ash. So it's actually a two-part book. It's scaling up. One is, sorry, not scaling up. It's scaling lean, and the follow-up to that is running lean as well. So those two books by Ash Muraya, I'd really recommend people to get those books, because it helps you with innovation specifically, which is I think something that is critical right now, and the reason why more innovation than it is about digital technology is because it's about strategy. The technology comes later, right? And if I may, there's this smart young gentleman in South Africa named KK Diaz. I hear he's written a couple of books. You may want to check out those couple of well, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. No, definitely we'll be putting your information too on the show notes. So, okay, so, I like to have fun with my guests, and I have one question that I always tell them about, which is, I'm on the fourth floor, right? So I'm a child of the 80s, kind of sort of 90s. And so one of my favorite movies was of all time has been Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox. If we could jump on the DeLorean right now, and it's you, Marty, Doc, and we're going back to the future, and you can talk to a younger KK Diaz, what advice would you give yourself?
Wow.
And there has to be, there's no right or wrong, obviously, and there has to be no,
sure.
If you don't want to change anything, you don't change anything, right?
I think this answer is more for me than it is for you, right?
Yeah.
so I really want to make sure it's the kind of answer that it would really be something I look at. I think what I would do is I would tap myself and say, yo, wake up. The world is bigger than you know, right? And the reason is because I took too long to wake up, right? And I took too long primarily because, again, of the community where I come from. There's very little exposure, or there was at the time very little exposure, right? My mom taught me how to read very early on. So if, and maybe one of the things I would say to myself is read a little bit more than what your mom tells you to read, I think that's it. That's what I would tell myself,
Oh, that's great. Hey, listen, as always, KK, I had a curiosity about your last name because it's Diaz, right? So that sounds very Spanish surname, Hispanic. How do you come to have Diaz as a last name, being from South Africa?
So my grandfather, who was we call what he was colored in South Africa, right? Which is mixed. Trevor Noah talks about it a lot on his show and obviously in his books.
Love Trevor Noah, by the way, man.
Right?
Oh, you guys have imported a great one over here.
We're so proud of it. So my grandfather was colored, and so I used to ask him, I'm like, Grandpa, like, what's going on here? Right? And I'm dark because my dad is the dark one in his family. Everybody's very light in complexion. So I used to bug him quite a bit. May his soul rest in peace. He was honest enough to tell me that he didn't know where our surname came from. But literally last year, September in 2019, through a vision that a dream actually that a cousin of mine had who lives not too far from me here in Johannesburg, he tells me about this dream and says, yo, we need to go and find out. I had this dream about his great-grandfather, who's also my great-grandfather, sent him somewhere to say, come and find me. And so anyway, we go to Limpopo, where we're from, and we look for this place. And I used to tell people that I'm from out of this world. You wouldn't imagine what the place is called. The place is called Mars, right? Mars. This place is called Mars in Limpopo. And so
I'm going to start getting into the whole conspiracy theories that I have about alien life form, but okay. So
Yeah.
then
So
it's called Mars, and then so what happened?
yeah. So anyway, we discover the grave site, and this is where we start asking questions, and so the stories around that we discover is that my great grandfather came from Mozambique. Now Mozambique has a rich Portuguese history.
Okay.
So there's bloodline and families there that I need to go and find. And in December 2019, it was one of the things that I wanted to do. Unfortunately, things didn't happen. So it's really a journey that I'm on now to discover exactly where my bloodline comes from. And I'm looking forward to knowing. And who knows, we could be family, brother.
I love it. We all are family. So listen, I want to thank you again. It's been a pleasure speaking with you again, KK. And stay safe, stay healthy,
Yeah.
and keep doing what you're doing, man. I love what you're doing. I love where it comes from, and I'll definitely be putting in show notes your books. So tell people if they want to find you where they can find you, and I'll make sure to put it on the show notes.
Appreciate it, man. So on LinkedIn, just search for KK Diaz. Last time I checked, I was at least the only one with that, at least in the URL and on LinkedIn. And obviously go to agamebusiness.com. Not only will you find me there, but there are also links to download some of those ebooks, man, which I know, as you said, you'll include links directly to those in the show notes. So I appreciate it, Jan. Thank you very much, fam.
You're welcome, man. Always a pleasure, man. Be safe, please. And more people need KK Diaz in the world. So even if you are from Mars. So with that, again, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the rest of the week, man, and be safe.